guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be reacting to another video of Paula Morgan's. This one intrigued me. This one, I'm just going to be honest, because this one is a Christian versus atheist marriage Q&A featuring Jacqueline Glenn. And if you remember in my last video, I mentioned how some of the stuff they were talking about wasn't exclusive to Christian marriages. It was just kind of like the basics, I think, in general. I know every marriage and situation is different, but it's kind of just like, how is that specific to Christian marriages? I think everybody kind of wants that, but I'm excited to see this one, and let's see what they say. This is also my first time watching it, so we're watching it for the first time together, I'm assuming, unless you actually like watch their channel because you like it. I also want to mention again that these videos, because I'm not blurring them out, because I'm literally talking about the stuff they say on their channel, so I'm not going to blur them out because what would be the point in that? We do not comment on people's appearances. We don't go find them and harass them. We don't go and interact with them, guys. We talk about them here on my channel. Leave them alone. Don't pester them, okay? They're not like coming onto our stuff and pestering them. We're just going to chit chat over here. Okay, thank you, please.
What's up, guys? How you doing? I'm Paul.
I'm Morgan.
I'm Jacqueline.
I'm David.
In today's video, Christians versus atheists.
Oh man.
And kind of a Jew.
Yeah.
Marriage Q&A. This is going to be awesome. All right, so
But that's funny because I don't really get into the Jewish side of my upbringing because it didn't really do anything to me, and we never really got super into it. So it's more of a fond memory, I guess. Like, I don't have so much against it. But it's funny because I usually say that too. Like, if people like ask about like my religious background, like I'll just throw in there like sort of kind of like a Jew, but not really. So it's hard to explain. Also, I am going to be cutting stuff out that isn't important for context or commentary.
awesome. All right, so as we kick things off, Jacqueline and David, this is pretty epic. How are you guys feeling?
I'm stoked.
Yeah, really excited.
Always wanted to make my debut on the Paul and Morgan channel.
Yeah, we've been waiting.
Can you guys believe this?
Goal achieved.
Comment below right now. What is your all's reaction to see Jacqueline specifically? Because we have a little more history.
Get that atheist off your channel.
What's your all's reaction to see this? Like literally doing a Q&A.
Well, from all the feedback that I've gotten just from my Insta stories, it's been like, I love this. This is so fun.
People seem to be genuinely excited.
Yeah, I
It's
think
nice
so.
to see people like overcome differences and like be civil. You know?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, because the only time you can't have like civil conversations with people is when one side is going to like shove their opinion on whatever the topic is down your throat. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm a Christian, so obviously this is where I'm coming from. I mean, like, if you're trying to say like, how do you feel about LGBTQ? But if one is saying, you know, you shouldn't do that because the Bible says, well, the other party doesn't give a rat's ass what the Bible says, so that doesn't really apply. But it's one thing to pertain it to yourself as a Bible thumper. So I coexist with Christians, Jews, like all kinds of people, and I don't have a problem with that as long as they're not trying to push their beliefs on me, my family, my children, or other people. I don't care what they do in their private practice of their religion because I don't know, because that's not my business.
Picked out some of your all's questions that you wrote us on Instagram. I think it's going to be really good conversation. I'm excited to see where this goes, having obviously two pretty different perspectives. I think we should just jump right into it. But first, Morgan, give them why they should subscribe.
Okay, make sure you subscribe because we make videos on culture and social issues from a Christian perspective to help you have hope.
And be free.
There we go.
Let's go.
We did not practice it.
We literally did not.
Big fan.
All right. You guys, I feel like, should we introduce Jacqueline and David? I don't think we need to.
We don't need an introduction. I mean, I don't know.
They need
Go
no
ahead.
introduction.
Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is David. I married her, and now we are the Frank family. We have a vlog channel. I sing my butt off on the internet. You make me glow. And ask her to sometimes sing with me, but she mostly talks on the internet.
That was great.
That was a beautiful
perfect, babe.
introduction.
Let's just jump.
She has a pretty big channel. And I've never heard of her, so I'm probably gonna go check out her content, honestly. Like, I'm curious as to what her channel is about.
In to the first question. I like this one. I like starting I like starting things off with this question.
Starting with a bang.
Before we get into stuff that's a little spicier,
Don't we all?
let's just, all right.
Start off with it.
Question 1. What does a healthy marriage look like to both sides?
Oh, we get to go first?
Yeah, we'll let you guys go first.
Goody.
Please.
I would say a healthy marriage is one that, you guys are obviously in love and you compromise on things and learn how to work through things and share interests and do fun things together and have a happy life.
That sounds good.
She was ready. That rolled off.
That's just kind of what I envision, but that's just me.
For me, marriage is, of course, something that like is a big deal to get involved and choose somebody like that for your life commitment. But I'd say marriage also is continuing to choose each other for the rest of the life, and there might be hard times in that, but working through and making that choice for the rest of your life.
I think that's really good.
Those were good answers. Wow, I'm like sweating. I think their answers are
That's
going to
probably
be...
the turtleneck.
Literally.
Definitely. Morgan, what would you add to that? Anything different? I'm feeling like we're pretty closely on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys said, I agree. We would add going after the Father together. The Lord God.
We don't have to
Not
whisper.
on our list, but
Yeah.
It's interesting that that's part of having a happy marriage, because they do some disclaimers, Paul and Morgan, but they don't. I feel like they could add a couple more just to sprinkle on some razzle dazzle and pre-resolve any conflict that could arise, which sometimes is good to do unless you think you can handle it well. Because I feel like they should say like what makes a good Christian marriage, because saying that a good marriage involves following the Lord the Father, like clearly the other couple who's atheist feels like they can have a good marriage without, like, it doesn't require that.
No, that's just doing kingdom work.
Kingdom work together, yeah. Husbands loving your wives as Christ loved the church. Wives submitting to your husbands.
Oh, here we go.
I'm quoting.
No. I mean, did he just say that for, like, dramatic effect? I feel like it's beating a dead horse, but honestly, like, I could still beat that dead horse, like, any day. Any day, because it is one of the reasons why the last time I went to church, that is the verse that they were reading. That was the last time I ever went to church, and I decided that was not for me, because I was sitting there and I think I was probably 23 and my brain was like sort of starting to develop a bit more and they started reading that verse and that was it. They didn't get into the part about what men are supposed to do, the requirements for men and all that. It was just women submit to your husbands. And like, what does that mean? What does that look like for women? Like, I'm not doing that. I think I personally like naturally submit in like certain scenarios, but there's a lot of scenarios where I am like an elite leader and like that's my strengths. So like it's interesting, and I don't actually recall what Paul thinks that means by submit to your husbands. It depends on who you talk to, I've found, because everyone sees that differently. And like also I feel like that needs to be reworded, because again, like I don't think the Bible applies to modern times unless you mishmash it so far away from what it actually was intended to say.
This is all right.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Let's go.
No, it's okay.
I'm all about this
scripture. But I think we're in total agreement with what Jacqueline and David said. Was that too soon?
No, it's okay. Wait, I totally was ready for you guys to say that. I was like,
It rolled
how
off.
long until they say this? And it was...
It rolled off my tongue. It rolled off my tongue.
So
All right, next question, taking a little bit more of a heavy turn. Is divorce an option if things don't work out in the future? We'll let you guys go first again, and then we'll go first next time.
yeah,
I think I'm gonna stick with sort of the desire to still choose each other. I would never want to be divorced, but of course divorce is always an option if we decide to not choose each other. And I think that fighting for that and always wanting to be the best partner for each other would mean that we're going to never have to make that option of a choice.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, this is interesting for me in particular. I don't know if you guys know this, but I have been divorced before.
I don't think I did know
I
that.
was in a really, really unhealthy situation.
I didn't know that.
I meant to tell you. I was in a really, really bad situation that I had to fight my way out of. And I am so thankful that I was able to do that, because now I have this life that I never thought I would have had. And I'm, obviously I found David, and now we have a baby, and like everything is, my life is something that I never thought I could have had. So as much as I want to say, bad things about divorce, because obviously it's not something anybody wants to do or talk about, for us, it's not going to happen. But I'm thankful that it was an option for me before. Yeah.
So I have a question. What would you guys say to a couple that have been married 20 years and then say, because we hear this a lot, like we all do, this person's just not the person that I married, would be one, or perhaps I just don't love this person anymore. Like what?
Let me pop in with my opinion. I think it's fair to say, like, someone, like, you decide that your partner developed into someone, like, you don't recognize, but I think something that you need to recognize before you even get to that point, just like a little piece of advice from an expert in nothing, you have to understand that you are not choosing to be with someone who is going to stay the same forever. And sure, people will develop in good ways, in some ways bad, but you are choosing, like when you get married, you are choosing to be with that person like for that whole journey, and like you're gonna guide each other and go through it and like add and subtract all this stuff. But to say, oh, this person just changed into someone like I didn't sign up for, like, okay, what exactly is that though? Like, is it something you really can't move past and work through? Like, are they doing something bad? Like, what does that actually look like? Because it's not fair to say like, oh, like, because me, like when my husband and I got together, I was 23? I want to say I was 23 when we got together. And now I'm 28. Do you think I'm the same person? Absolutely not. Oh my God. Because that's before my brain was fully developed, and now I'm 28. And I would argue it is still developing. But when I turned 25, just the light bulbs went off. I don't make a lot of short form content, but I do make some. And I made a video the other day talking about how I feel like I've become multiple different people. And I think if you think about it, that's true for a lot of people, especially women, because we're kids, we're teenagers, and then we turn 18, you hit those milestone years. And for me, I feel like with each one, I was a completely different person. I mean, like, obviously, like, the ground floor is still there, but even that was getting reworked, And then once I turned 25, it was like my whole brain turned on, and it was like overload of information and processing. It was a really big time for me, and like realizing so many things, because that's when your brain is fully developed. I'm not even 30 yet. I do turn 29 this year. So woo woo, that is, and then I'll be 29 forever. But like, if you're in a relationship with someone who is younger than you, or like you go through like those formative years, like unless you get together when you're like 30 or whatever, you are signing up to go on that journey with that other person is going to go through. And like some of it is going to involve you and your relationship, and some of it is going to be, their own personal stuff. But I think that can be like touchy to say, like, oh, they're not the person I signed up for. Like, okay, well, they're not a robot. So, and if someone stayed the same the whole time, is that a green flag? I would argue not.
How would you guys respond to that?
It takes work. My answer sort of stayed the same on all of these, but yeah, you want to be able to grow in your life as a person. You want to have your partner be able to grow, and you want to hopefully be able to grow together. And if you hold each other back, you're not going to be able to both reach your full potential. Mm-hmm. But in that sort of growth, there is constantly checking in with each other to make sure that you're being the partner that you need to be. So in the event that you're not being the kind of partner for your partner, then I mean, yeah, you have a decision. Do you want to be there for them? Do you want to help them through what they need the help with? Otherwise, you're not being the partner they need. Mm-hmm. And yeah, eventually I think that kind of separation can really get to a point where it's worth it to...
It sounds like basically what he's saying, like in so many words, is that you need to make sure like the relationship is still good while you're going through all these changes. Like, prioritize that.
Split the stuff and, you know, do the hard separation of divorce.
I think that it shouldn't be like something you jump to. You know, obviously there's a lot of work, and then, you know, therapy is always an option for people. But I don't know that I would say you have to stay with somebody forever if they're, you know, making you.
I'm sorry, I just noticed something. Everyone's messing with their hands the whole time, and now I am too. Like, all I see is a line of them just doing this, and now I'm doing it too, and I can't stop.
Completely miserable, and you've tried everything, and you've been trying, and you know, it's really, really tough.
It is.
And I don't want to, like,
marriage is just stinking hard.
I don't want to pretend to know everybody's situation, you know, because everybody has something that they're going through that's unique. So this is just my opinion. I don't want to push that on anybody that's
I appreciate
got their own unique.
Yeah, appreciate you saying that it's your opinion.
Yeah. Tough questions, guys.
I know.
Yeah, you appreciate that, Paul. You appreciate that, but you're not going to do that. Like, be specific for your situation, because I feel like it is important to separate those two things, because otherwise you can get lost in the sauce and, like, make yourself out to be a massive bigot, instead of saying, oh, like, in the context of my marriage, like, this is what I want, this is how I see it, and, you know, as a blanket, like, I think Christian marriage should look like this. But saying marriage period should have A, B, and C, let's not do that.
I know.
I appreciate you guys being honest and open with answering that. Morgan, do we have just where do we see when it comes to divorce?
Yeah, I mean, just as you answer this.
And you guys aren't going to offend me.
No.
So don't worry about saying if you think it's horrible and you know that that's my situation, I'm not going to cry about it.
I mean, there are indeed some very just awful situations, and that it becomes very tricky. Biblically, we see Jesus, he kind of gives the caveat of marital unfaithfulness. So adultery is a grounds for divorce. But, you know, beyond that, it gets pretty tricky, and Christians, even though very sadly the divorce rate among professing Christians is not good, and that's a whole nother ballgame, but biblically, there's not a lot of grounds for divorce.
But I think that we have fallen into I don't know.
I think that I could do, like, a whole series on that, because that is such a massive topic to dissect, like, divorce within Christianity and all of that. But I do want to say that there is a huge problem that is still going on in the Christian world, where people feel like how Paul and Morgan do, where the only reason to divorce or separate is if there's infidelity. And why is sex the only thing? Like, because they put sex on this giant crazy pedestal and make it this whole big deal. It's bad, but it's good in a marriage. Oh, and, you know, but you can forgive yourself, so, like, is there really sin? You know, and it's this whole big thing. So when things like DV, if you know, you know, unfortunately, when topics like that come up, a lot of people feel like they're going to be shamed for leaving. And this is where, in my opinion, it gets culty. It's not just, oh, like, I'm learning to love people better and be a better. No, this is when you get into cult territory, because there are still, like, currently present, like today, there are people within that religion that feel like they can't leave their ABUSE IV, whatever. You guys get what I'm talking about. Like, they're, you know, hitting on you and stuff. They can't leave their partner because that would go against what their church is teaching, or what the Bible taught, or what they feel Jesus taught, like, however they're interpreting things. And they can't go and get safe. They have to sit there and, like, pray their way through it, or, like, try to make it work. Oh, the person goes to therapy. And that leaves a lot of women in a vulnerable and dangerous position. So I think that this kind of thinking is harmful, like, point blank, period. Like, if you're not going to disclose, like, oh, like, yeah, I think divorce is on the table if you do, like, unforgivable things like DV, cheating on your spouse, like infidelity, you know, something happens with the kids, stuff like that. Like, you can't just leave it to infidelity being the only thing, because then that person, that becomes a control situation where they know you're not going to leave, and they can do everything else and still have you at the end of the day. And I don't think that's good. Paul and Morgan, let's stop spreading that. they don't have to like not say that, because that just doesn't happen in Christian marriages. It does at a rate you would be shocked. Like you would, I don't know what the exact statistics are, but I didn't believe it for so long.
And maybe it's just always been like this, but people not wanting to fight. And like you said, David, I think
Fight for their marriage.
Right, yeah, I think that was a really good answer of just like, we're always growing, and I'm not going to be the same person that I was when Paul first married me in 10 years or even now. And like, so I hope that he's growing with me and we're growing together, and we're taking the time to like learn about one another and walk with each other so that we stay strong together, and don't, we're always going to come up with, you know, struggles, and marriage isn't easy, but
yeah.
yeah.
I've really been impressed with the atheists side of the panel so far. And I'm just going to go ahead and
We're pretty great, you know.
I'm going to go ahead and say atheist side. David obviously is not technically, but you also don't necessarily.
Go watch Jacqueline's video. He explained it.
And she is Christmas.
She's Christmas.
I wasn't Christmas when I was younger.
We like tradition.
Yeah.
There might not be a religious, you know, belief behind it, but the cultural tradition part of things is something that is going to stick.
If I say atheist side,
it's fine.
Christian side,
That's good.
yeah, I'm not trying to make a blanket statement, but
Yeah.
He's impressed. What does he think like we do? like people get so stuck in their own little box, and like so do I, because I barely have friends. So like that's why I like to like listen to podcasts of other people just like talking off the top of their head with their own thoughts, and like just making sure I'm like staying in touch, you know, with reality, and that there's other people who think in different ways than me. But why is that such a shock? Why are you impressed by that? That it's almost like you guys pretty much agree, just outside of the context of, you know, a Christian marriage, and the atheist side has more leeway when it comes to divorce. Like, you're impressed by that, Paul? Like, that's what a lot of people do. Also, if any of this gets too touchy of a subject, I'm just going to edit it out. And also, like, so this video doesn't become a beast and my computer blows out.
all right, next question. What is something you admire in each other's marriages? Let's go first to give them a second to think about it. Hopefully they can think of something.
Okay, already gone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, just with you sharing your story with just how you felt like you were never gonna find a man, I just think that it's really cool how you and David have been able to build such a beautiful little family, and like it's just clear that you guys have pretty good and sweet communication with each other, and just teamwork. I think I've seen a lot of teamwork just as we've hung out with you for the weekend, and I really think that's awesome.
I just will second all what Morgan said. They seem like they're a really good team, and that's special. It is not easy to be together as much as
to work together.
Work from home.
Oh man, it's hard.
David does social media. Jacqueline does social media.
And your first year of marriage, like you guys are crushing it.
I mean, they are
How long
crushing
have you guys
it.
been married?
5.5, almost 5.5 years.
All right, so you guys had a theme of teamwork for us. I like that. I'm gonna say I have like a theme of like support for you guys. Like I have seen a lot of different moments where you guys have really been there to like support each other through things. Even something as simple as in the Jesse Lee Peterson video when he was being wildly inappropriate to Morgan. You stood up and you defended her. And
Oh yeah, if you guys haven't seen that like collab or debate, I'm not even sure what they called it. Oh my god, that poor excuse for a human being made me irate. I don't even think I could finish the video because it was so disgusting and so egregious. I don't encourage you to watch that because it will ruin your day.
you were there to like, you know, say don't speak about her mother or whatever crazy, you know, thing he was saying.
There was still some shock value going on, so I don't know how but thank you.
Yeah, no, I just see a lot of support between you guys, and you know, any struggles that you have, I feel like you're really there for each other, and that's so important.
True. Thanks.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Look at us, all hanging out.
Just
That's good.
Still friends.
That's good. All right. This is actually a question that a lot of people asked.
Okay.
So this will be interesting. Are there traditional gender roles in your relationship, or just the broader question of gender roles? An atheist more of an atheist couple,
Sure.
Christian couple?
I don't know. I mean, I think anything that we have that is like aligned with a gender is like accidental, like just so happens to be.
Yeah, that's an interesting. So
I
is
mean,
there any like intentional ones where you guys are like, let's make this a priority, or is it just kind of the natural how the chips fall?
A little bit of, there's some learned behaviors. I have to clean a little bit more than I, it would have on my own
Honesty.
to be, doing my part, It's, the wheat's a shared household.
the only thing I can think of is that like I do whenever we're at a restaurant, for example, like I do just kind of sit back and let David pay for it out of we have like a shared account, obviously, but like I don't really ever whip out my credit card.
Nice.
And so
I drive more.
You drive more.
I don't do any breastfeeding.
Morgan, do we have any thing specific to us that's like significantly different than them, or maybe that we see like, oh, this is a big...
Well, I think it's just funny because everyone tends to assume that Paul is the handy.
You know what's funny? Because human behavior is one of my favorite things. Watching Paul versus Morgan. First of all, the atheist couple seems like two totally normal people, but Paul and Morgan are the main attraction here because they're so interesting to me. Because Morgan is like bubbly and animated, and I love when she speaks over Paul. I find it so funny. And Paul is like, it seems like he has to try so much harder than Morgan. Not that Morgan's trying, but like he has to try to like match her energy, if that makes sense. And you can see like just in that moment where he's like, and then he just falls and he's like, and maybe he's just listening. Like, okay, like maybe he's just trying to listen, but it's just funny, like when the mask falls.
Man, and I am the handy woman. Like, I build the things. I hang the things up. I do the housework. I would build a table. He would not. Like,
it is odd.
Assembling things.
I hate like IKEA furniture.
I mean, who loves that? That's just terrible.
I kind of like it.
No, I like doing it. Like when we got a table and chair set, I built it all myself with 2 babies running around. My youngest was not running around. My youngest can't even walk. My youngest can't even crawl. You get the idea though. But I built it all myself in a day, in a couple hours. I enjoy it, even though, am I good at it? No, I usually build it wrong the first time, and then the next time I get it, But I enjoy the process. I like a long, drawn-out process. And every once in a while, doing physically challenging things other than like workouts is pretty fun for me.
I don't like it.
But yeah, I don't think so.
I think, and I believe there actually is a question specifically about this that we're going to get to, but when it comes to kind of like the leadership or like the roles, so it goes a little bit beyond gender roles. So we'll just wait and we'll see what that one is. Next question. Would you say there are more similarities or differences between the two kind of marriages?
I'd say there's some similarities. I think we've spoken of similar hardships that we've been dealing with in our own worlds. Yeah, and I think that it's nice to be able to bond over some similar hardships. I'd say a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Jacqueline?
I think so too.
Well, yeah, because why would they be polar opposites? They're both marriages, which is like a lifelong commitment of figuring out how to live with another person and stay together the whole time.
It almost is kind of surprising, but I feel like there's probably more similarities than there are differences.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I agreed.
That's quick.
Crazy.
Who would have thought?
I mean, I think...
Oh, well, I didn't think you would have thought that, Paul and Morgan. I would have thought you'd be more bewildered by that fact.
I mean, I think it's safe to kind of assume that there would be more similarities, right? I mean, just because like there's a difference of religion doesn't mean that like relationships don't take a certain mentality and commitment, and
exactly.
That's something
That's
that.
the point.
And you let a little brunch, blessing over this morning, and that was just, regardless of the theological element of it, it was just a kind appreciation of the moment and the food and being in the home and friendship.
That's an interesting point, because I really appreciated when people would like, and I would start when I started speaking up for myself more in life, when people would ask, oh, can I pray over you? And I would say, like, no, like, I appreciate it, but no, thank you. Like, they can do that in their own time, whatever. But I understand for them, it's like a nice gesture. But am I going to participate in that? No, I am not. But when I'm like at a gathering, like family gatherings, and like somebody wants to pray, like, I have no problem with that. I just sit there and be respectful, be quiet, and just wait for it to be over. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to pray, but I'm not going to sit there and like interrupt their thing, you know? But like, is that so crazy?
Friendship, and that's perfect. That's awesome. Very Jewish of you.
Appreciate you guys letting me do that.
Yeah.
L'chaim.
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 Which means to life.
To life.
To life.
There we go. All right. Here we go. Okay, this was the one I brought up earlier. What's the dynamic of their relationship if there's no submission? Who leads in hard times?
He said I think he's taking. Well, I mean, he does kind of control what we do.
That's true.
No, they really do though. Like, they really are the boss of us for like the first year.
True.
As far as like, there's still a huge teamwork element of it. I think we each have different strengths, and you know, organizational stuff with some of our like vlog edits and our timing of all of our responsibilities. You are much better at some of that. But I have different strengths in certain ways in that too. As far as, I don't think we submit to each other. There's not like a submissive leader role. We're more team on sort of everything.
Yeah, I don't really see it hierarchical at all. It's just
Yeah, I think that's way better because like if like you don't have to make everything your strong suit just because like whoever is supposed to be the leader in a relationship. Like, why not just play into your strengths and then like tag team the weaknesses if there's any shared ones?
hierarchical at all. It's just kind of, we both are together and help out when we can and lean on each other when we need to. And
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of that lately. You know, we have a lot of responsibilities.
I like that because a lot of times I feel like men feel as though they, and I'm not going to sit here and be the defender of men or anything. Okay, do I look like I have a cape? Yes, because I have my crocheted blanket on. There's this sort of like shared belief among Christians that men have to like carry all this responsibility to not have these emotions so they could be the strong one for their families. I mean, I guess that goes to say like even outside of Christianity. And that doesn't make any sense. And how is that healthy for anyone? You know, I think tag teaming things and playing into your strengths and like tackling weaknesses together is way better, because then nobody's sitting there thinking they have to be like this stoic being robot and not a human.
A lot of responsibility, so it's good to be able to work together.
Have you guys ever had like a conversation where like you feel really strongly about one thing and he feels total opposite about the other? Like
all the time.
How do you go about that?
Yeah, like a big, like maybe a big one.
I don't know, like there's always like, to me there's like gray areas in some things. Like
I'd say there's just difference of
it's so loud.
just difference of she feels strongly about a certain way, and then I'll feel strongly about a certain way, and then it's like, how do we get to a place where we understand what the other feels and we accept that each other feel differently and find that perfect middle ground to collaborate.
Right.
So it's just a lot of understanding and conversation and empathy and compromise.
Yeah, there's no she's gonna be like, oh well, he feels passionately, so we're just gonna go with what he says. Like, no, it's not the 1950s.
It takes learning and time. We're not experts at it. We're working on it.
It's not like, oh well, I disagree with David, but gotta do what he says because he's a man. It's, we talk it out,
I wish.
I wish.
Oh, he wishes. Wait a
Boy,
minute.
wish all day.
Wait a minute.
Is this your conversion to Christianity?
I'm converting now.
Oh no.
What's the religion where the women in charge? I'll convert to that, and then you can convert to
Amazons.
Christianity.
Sadly, it really doesn't exist. Isn't that funny? Interesting. Yeah, that was a thought when I started deconstructing my time in Christianity. I thought it was really weird because someone said that and they were like, oh, there's really no major religions that are like started by women, led by women, and like that are popular. Like, it's just not a thing. Isn't it funny that like men had to create this whole religion thing to like, it seems like just like another control tactic. Okay, let me not get too far into the deep end with you guys.
Amazonian.
Wait, what is?
I mean, I use Amazon all the time.
What's Wonder Woman? She's from the island of.
Oh yeah, that.
That's kind of
that.
that's what Jacqueline
What
wants.
she wants.
Here's an interesting question, and actually, David brought this up in the video that we did over on Jacqueline's channel, so we'll link that one below. But do you think your marriages could work if it was one atheist with a Christian? Ooh, like, and let's go ahead and take a pretty extreme, like a devout atheist, a devout Christian.
Devout atheist is an interesting concept.
No, and that's like a weird word because I consider myself agnostic atheist, and like people argue about the terms all the time, so take that how you will. But my understanding of it is that I don't believe a God, period, exists. Certainly not the Christian God, and if he did, he's a what? But like I'm not convinced, and he hasn't convinced me. Neither have any of his fan club. Anything I've read, not convincing to me. That's kind of like how I see that. But saying devout, am I devoted to that? No. If you can prove to me without a shadow of a doubt, within a shadow of doubt, whatever the saying is, then I'd be open to hearing that. The problem is that I've heard just about every other argument and I'm not impressed. I'm not convinced. And that's just what it is. But I'm like open to it being shown to me in a new way.
That's true.
It just depends. It depends. I mean, if you were super religious in any capacity and were accepting of me still, I don't think it'd be a problem for me. You know, and I would have to, because I would be accepting as long as it wasn't something pushed on me or as long as it wasn't something that, you know,
Judging you.
really.
I think that's the way a lot of people feel. And I'm glad they're having this conversation on the internet so that other people like me can weigh in and give our opinions, and other people in the comments can weigh in and give their opinions. Like, I think the whole discussion needs to happen, and it is long overdue. So I'm glad it's happening on their channel and on mine. Because if there is a scenario where you can't get along, if one person is religious and the other isn't, that becomes a control issue, in my opinion. Like, I feel like that would be a control issue and getting into culty territory, because it's probably going to be, in my opinion, based on, you know, my time as a person on this planet, it's a situation where the religious person is feeling pressure from their religion to begin othering their significant other. And if you like need to know what othering is it's when you like other people. I feel like it's self-explanatory, but it's when you make them, it's us versus them kind of mentality. You're on the ship of right and they're in the sea of wrong, and they won't get on your ship, basically.
You know,
Judging you.
really caused a lot of like animosity or judgment. If we could just like be okay to be different, then I would, you know.
Yeah, if that gave me an understanding that I would hope that I would see my grandparents again in the future, I think you would accept me for that. You know, I would be understanding as well if you were a Christian or anything, as long as I'm not told I'm going to hell and like I'm trying to like clean the dishes or something.
That's an interesting one because, like you said, as long as you're not telling me that I'm going to hell. But what if, say, Jacqueline was a really strong Christian? And
Well, I feel like this is an because if Jacqueline was a super strong Christian and he was a super strong atheist, like, would that even, like, because they're so strong, like, you wouldn't be able to not be like, hey, you need to accept Jesus so you don't go to hell. Like,
so that's kind of my question is if Jacqueline were to say, like, I just believe what the Bible says so firmly.
Which she did.
Yeah,
She was very evangelical. But I didn't know you then. I don't know. I think there would be a struggle, I think, a little bit if there was too much pressure to go to church. And I know, I have a lot of people that I know that, you know.
Yeah, there is nothing better than becoming an adult and you no longer have the pressure to go to church. The pressure started wearing off for me probably closer to like graduating high school. Like, I think I almost stopped altogether, like not even Wednesday nights. And when we did go on Sunday mornings, like I would just chill in the back and basically just like think about cheer, because that was what got me through high school.
We're sort of forced to convert to Judaism to like marry into the family or whatever, and you have to really take that on. You have to really like.
It's a big deal. It's a big thing.
Yeah, and there's a whole conversion process. I don't know the Christianity one, but Judaism, you sort of.
I don't know if it's like fair to say it's a closed practice, but it's extremely hard to get like into it. But like things like Christianity, wide open. Like you can literally just pop up one day, read the Bible, decide you co-sign that, and be like, yeah, I'm a Christian. Like it takes nothing. Taking on Judaism is a whole shebang. Like there's a whole other language and culture that comes with that.
But Judaism, you sort of have a bar mitzvah, and you go through a whole training, and a lot of adult bar mitzvahs out there.
Jacqueline, if you had met David when you identified as an evangelical Christian, and he was as charming as he is now, sweet, pursuing you, or showing this interest, would it have been a no-go?
Well, and this is a theme throughout my life. I would have thought that I would have just been so special that I could have changed your mind, and I would have tried to save you, and then I guess it would have been whether or not you'd be willing to put up with that, and I don't know.
It would be really interesting to hear the viewpoints on Messianic Judaism. That would be so interesting because if you're not familiar, that is kind of like what we did mixed with some other stuff. It's a whole complicated thing, but basically, in my opinion, based on my experience, Messianic Jews are Jews who believe in Jesus. So it's like a mix of Christianity and Judaism. And it's very, when I think about it now, it's pretty fucked up. But I'd be interested to hear the atheist couple talk about that more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'm glad that we don't have that situation.
Yeah, so this is interesting because this is a topic where we would see it probably differently.
I think probably one of the biggest issues here is that because a lot of people get religious people, especially when they're like newfound in their religion, they are very defensive towards it, and they can't handle any criticism because they're brand new. I mean, like, they don't even know what to say. And a lot of times people just, they go to one church or whatever, like, they grew up with, and they feel like that's the right one. And critical thinking, you're just like, yeah, obviously this is the right one. Obviously. It's like if you live in America, like, you're probably gonna be a Christian or like align with it somehow, because that's just how the cookie crumbles here. If you go to a different place, it might be Hinduism. You go to another place, it might be Islam. Like, it just depends. There's so many factors that go into that. But if you can't like have cordial discourse with someone because they're getting so defensive and they can't see a voice of reason, like, I feel like that's when you're getting into culty territory. And that's when you're in a situation where you do have to consider if you can be in a relationship with someone who's so hardcore religious, because they can't be normal anymore. Like, they can't function outside of their religion, which I understand, like, religion ties into like literally everything you do. But if you cannot understand that everyone else isn't going to function that way, and they are still deserving of good things and love and everything good, and they don't need to be bogged down by your religion like you are, then you are getting into rocky territory, and that's where you become the problem.
Probably differently than David and Jacqueline, because there's two kind of different scenarios in the Bible. One is where the Apostle Paul says, do not be unequally yoked with a non-believer, and you can definitely apply that to marriage. He's just saying that's unwise, and he's encouraging, he's imploring.
Why? Because you didn't have any communication skills back then? Hello, the Apostle Paul. I mean, this is one of those things I feel like is just so stupid. Like, I understand, like, women did not have the same roles and rights, and societies didn't function the same way that they do now, which is why the Bible should not be used for modern situations, really. I think there's some good from it. I can't think of anything at the moment, but I like to think somewhere in there's some stuff that could be relevant. But in general, let's just leave that as a historical fun book to read.
Encouraging, he's imploring Christians not to. But then there's the other layer, where Paul says, if you are married, like already married, and your spouse is non-believer and you're a believer, he instructs, he says, don't divorce them, like live with them and show them the love of Christ by the way that you love them. Next question just says,
The problem is a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't know how to express the love of Christ in a healthy way, or a way that doesn't make the other person feel suffocated by the religious person's viewpoints. Like, that's very hard to do and very hard to find balance.
says sex before marriage.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
We did. Yes, we did.
Yeah. Oh, I think you.
We did quite a bit, actually.
But like with the religious stuff too, could you lead a lot of people towards marriage because they're just horny and they think that that's the next thing, and then the religious element of is like what drives the marriage because they want to have sex? Like, that's gotta happen. Like,
Well, I'm sure it definitely does happen where Christians are like, I can't wait, so let's just get married, and then
People accused us of that big time. Like,
that we
you
just
guys
got
moved
married.
so fast.
Oh.
It was just because you guys wanted to have sex.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, you're still married, so there you go.
Here we are, 5.5 years later. Yeah, I think that definitely does happen. We would not necessarily encourage that. Just get married because you're horny. Like, that's one, because sex is not the only thing that happens in marriage, people. Like, there are other things that go on. It takes a lot of work and effort, and yeah. But yeah, that's definitely a thing.
So you guys look back and you wouldn't do it any differently. I'd be curious if you guys would say, in your all's view, there's any downside of having sex before marriage.
I think you hit the sex before marriage line, but you also almost like the living together before marriage is actually sort of a similar idea. Because I do think that's something not suggested or in Christianity.
Right,
correct?
it wouldn't be.
Yeah, so same idea. Well, speaking on behalf of myself, and get all weird and romantic or whatever, but sex would be...
I think that brings up an interesting point, because there's something I didn't consider, and I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this guy was talking about how living together before marriage, or before like the relationship gets like super committal, even if you don't believe in marriage, you need to live together. You should consider living together, because when you're seeing people like a couple times a week for a couple hours, you're not really getting to know that person, and they're not there in the forefront of your mind. You're not interacting with them all day, every day. Like if you both work from home, or like as much when you come home, when you wake up in the morning, how do they sleep? Like every night, when all the like performances stop, even not, I'm not saying that in a harmful way. Like you might not, wear cologne every day. You know what I'm talking about? Like, so, and the chips are going to fall, and you start to see how that person really functions day to day, and you guys have to figure out how to live together. I do think that is valuable for, couples who can handle that to do before marriage, because I think at that point, when you are ready to commit legally, or, we're doing this life thing together, that is going to be a stronger foundation, because you have lived together and you're like, okay, like, yes, I can do this. We have like figured something out, and we can do this long term, and we're going to continue figuring stuff out, because it's not going to be easy, instead of being, slapped in the face and waiting till marriage to live together. And then it's like insane, and you're like, I can't believe this. And you're like freaking out because they like to be in the same room with you all the time. And you're like, wow, I actually really liked when 4 days out of the week I had as much space as I needed,
Whatever, but sex would be an expression of love and two people's sort of enjoyment and emotional connection. To me, I think there's a lot of oxytocin and hormones element to it as well. And, I think if you have a good connection and a good expression, and you can work on it or whatever and figure that out, but what if you don't? What if you get to that moment and you don't feel that kind of connection or that kind of love with the person? Then you're supposed to be married to them, and like, I think that's another part of it. So it's the same idea. Oh, you got to move in together. Like, you got to learn how to live together. You got to learn how to have sex together. You got to learn how to live together.
So you guys hold that view then, that you guys may have sex and realize we do not have a sexual connection, so this person is probably not for me.
And you may also not be able to live together because of whatever. I don't know if I responded on behalf of us.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Jacqueline agrees. Morgan, what would your kind of response be to David's thoughts on that?
I guess just the way I look at it.
Oh yeah, here we go.
All
The
right.
king has returned.
We tried.
The sensation.
Perfect
He
shirt.
looks, it's like, wow, bright on this side of things.
Here.
All right.
Hello, bud.
Yeah, I think just the way I look at it is if you fall in love with a person before you have sex with them, and then you have sex and you're like, oh, this wasn't what I thought it was, or we don't connect, or this doesn't feel the way I think that it should. Like, in my mind, it's like, if you wait until marriage and that's happening, you have literally the rest of your lives to create a really beautiful, good sex life.
Ours is still a work in
All right, that is going to be it for this video. If you like this video, give it a little like, see-poo. What did you guys think about like both sides' viewpoints? I feel like there was a lot of common area. I kind of thought that Paul and Morgan were going to divulge more about their real opinions, you know, that I've heard them say before and allegedly. I'll leave your commentary for the class below, and if you super like this video, share it with your besties, okay? And make sure you are subscribed so you get to see all of my videos and my nails that are popping off. I just put this on the other day, and this one popped off because I made like 40. I'm trying to learn how to make more stuff from home because it's cheaper, and I made so much chocolate stuff trying new recipes the other day. It literally just popped off, and I was like, maybe it's for the best. But yeah, thank you guys again, and I will see you in the next one.